My name is Cale Green. I'm an Alaskan, and on July 10th, I broke my collarbone or clavicle on this side here in a biking accident. I'm uninsured. My regular family doctor recommended that I come here to OPA, or the Orthopedic Physicians Alaska Group. I came in on Friday the 19th, or 2 days ago from when I'm filming right now, to find out how much surgery might be and if they recommended surgery. They did recommend surgery. They said I should get in right away. They wanted me to come in on Monday. They were really very, very polite staff, very nice, but really pushing hard for me to get on Monday. And I, being uninsured, was asking, can I see the billing expert? Can I see the billing expert? They eventually sent her in, and she said, here's what this will cost you. And she presented me a bill with a 20% off discount for the physician and the assistant. I asked to see more details because I know that those aren't the only costs that are incurred. And being that I don't have insurance, I need to know all those costs up front. And that's when things started, in my opinion, getting maybe a little bit weird, where there was a bit of feet dragging and the issue wasn't dealt with. It was like I was pulling teeth to try to get this information, because the first answer was, well, we don't have control, we don't deal with bills from other people. And I was like, okay, so there's a law in Alaska that was passed pretty recently that has some form of protection basically for transparency in medical billing. So I said, yeah, I need to know all these costs before I start. Before I incur any charges against me, I need to know what I'm paying for. And that seems pretty standard. If I go to the store and I ask for a product, I know what I'm paying for. But here, it was like pulling teeth to try to find out the information, but I've got a legal right to be able to figure out what this all costs. So eventually, they continue to drag their feet and say, well, I have to be on hold with these people. I say, that's fine. I can wait for you to be on hold. I don't mind. I'd be happy to be on hold with you. They leave, they come back about 10 minutes later, and they say that, well, we couldn't get a hold of the anesthesiologist, but the anesthesiologist was, it's somewhere usually around $4,000 to $6,000. And I say, man, that's a pretty big range. Like, for someone who's self-paying, an extra $2,000 is something that could make or break a financial decision as far as whether or not I'm going to do it. And then she said that renting a room, a facility over at the main hospital here, Providence, would be, for the 2-hour surgery, that their estimate on how much it would cost is $20,000. So she brought in a bill for $3,800 when there were at least $25,000 worth of things that, had I said yes, had I not known to ask for other things, I would have been hit with. And there's no protection in place. They would have scheduled me for surgery, they would have had me in. So I decided to reach out to one of my friends who works in an industry that deals with medical tourism to find out a little bit more. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, it's good to see you,
Good
Sarah.
to see you.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing really well, thank you.
Good.
So what do you do exactly?
I work for a healthcare company, and we negotiate prepaid bundled discounts for surgery with facilities in the United States.
Why does that exist? Like, why is that there?
Why is this a thing?
Yeah.
Healthcare costs in Alaska specifically, but in the United States generally, are pretty high. And in the fee-for-service model, which is you go to the doctor and he gives you bills for different stuff. So if you're going to have a surgery, you'll get a bill for the facility. Then you get a bill for the surgeon. Then you get a bill for the assistant surgeon.
Yeah.
Then you get a bill for medical equipment, any drugs they give you, the anesthesiologist. So all of these things are billed individually. And because you might have a situation where the hospital is in network and the anesthesiologist is out of network, that's going to, say triple the cost of your surgery. So if you bundle everything, all of those individual charges that I just talked about are one charge, and you know what the charge is in advance. So you're going to avoid, balance billing afterwards. Patients know what the price is. Their company, if the company's paying the healthcare claims, know what the price is. It solves all of the healthcare transparency price issues that we have in the United States.
Which is a big reason that healthcare costs are as high as they are. Maybe the lack of transparency?
Yes, it's the only industry that I can think of at the moment where you go to purchase a good, and you don't know what the price of the good is until, say, 6 months down the road.
As if to illustrate that point, Tuesday, a day after the surgery that OPA tried to schedule for me, I got a call from Providence where they let me know that the estimate that they had for the facility cost of $20,000 were off by $8,000.
The $20,000 had the self-pay discount applied, the 20% discount. So the base price for a 2-hour stay for that service is roughly around $28,000. And that cost includes the operating room time, the anesthesia, any like medical supplies and drugs that are possibly needed for the service. And then, so that $28,000, that's the base price that we would bill. If you were to have insurance, or insurance will usually have a contract rate, which is negotiated based on the insurance. So that would, depending on the insurance type, it does bring the cost down, can be significant.
So not only was the surgery more expensive than I was initially quoted by 40%, but also over the course of the conversation, he explained to me how for someone who was uninsured, it would cost more money, not only out of pocket, but also as a base cost than someone who was insured. I walked into the surgeon's room and I was like, okay, looking up the average cost of surgery around the United States for clavicle, I was expecting to be able to pay X amount given the fact that I didn't have insurance after doing a lot of research, and that was in the $11,000 to $17,000 range. But after continually getting hit with bigger and bigger numbers and sums, I realized that in Alaska that's not possible, and so I'm going to end up getting the surgery in Mexico because I don't see this as being realistic, because I think that this is really a system that's been exacerbated by some of the worst capitalistic tendencies without transparency, without a free market economy.
Right, I mean, I can't disagree with you there.
After looking at so many different options, looking online for a while, talking with the folks over at Providence, and just seeing how expensive and prohibitively expensive healthcare was for someone who was uninsured in the state, in Alaska, and then talking with my friend who works in medical tourism and kind of just seeing the prices all around the United States, because while I think the problem is worse in Alaska, I think it's probably something that's pretty widespread, and honestly, had everything kind of been a more reasonable price, I would have paid it. But at the same time now, this has led me to seek it elsewhere. If you can't tell, I'm in the airport right now because I'm getting ready to go get the surgery in Mexico. Mexico, flying all the way down there and getting the surgery is gonna end up being the best value, like far and away from here. It's actually nearly a factor of like 3 to 7 times, depending on if you talk to regional or Providence, it's 3 to 7 times more expensive here than it is to fly down to Mexico for everything. The thing I wanted to bring up that I thought was a little bit interesting while I'm here, just kind of waiting for the flight, is after doing a little bit more research on the medical transparency bill that was passed pretty recently, it doesn't really do a good enough job of giving transparency in Alaska. And I realized that after looking into it and seeing that the law really has effectively no teeth. There's a $10,000 fine that can be given out by a state agency, but there's no reporting mechanism for an individual to go to that agency. And the maximum fine that can be put against a business that ends up giving you bad information is $10,000. But for example, when I was originally told by OPA, the Orthopedic Physicians of Alaska group, that my surgery would be $20,000 for facility cost at Providence, I thought that was it. But then when I called Providence, they said $28,000. That's the difference of $8,000 that OPA would have put me on a line for. We got off the flight and had a few hours to make it from Cabo over to La Paz, where I was having my surgery. So I had blood drawn, taken a little bit ago, and now I'm just waiting maybe another hour before the surgery. I'm laying in a bed. I am over in the pink hospital that I was showing earlier, and I signed a whole bunch of forms that were all in Spanish, and luckily I had someone here with me who they speak Spanish, and they did an excellent job of telling me everything. That would be something to consider if you want to have surgery in Mexico, is that you should probably know Spanish or have someone who knows Spanish be there with you. That would be the only way, because that was very confusing if it wasn't for them being here helping me. So the next step is to see how I feel on the way out. So I guess I'll see you after that. Check it out. They brought me food. So by the way, for anyone who hasn't been here, I have so far included in this bundle, and we'll see what everything is with like the final sticker price, but they're bringing me food. I've had 2 x-rays. They did an entire surgery on me. I have drugs and antibiotics that are hooked into me now. You might not be able to tell, but just a couple of drugs here and there. And this food, this looks really good. It's got eggs. What's in here? Whoa! Whoa, Mexican hospital. Mexican hospital. This is great. This is a really good deal.
Oh, well, the operation was excellent, without any problem.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
The x-rays look really good.
Yeah, we put a plate with 6 screws,
Okay.
so it's going to be pretty good.
Okay.
So just promise don't ride the bikes, hiking or something like that.
Yeah.
Nothing extreme sports for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. Okay.
You will be okay.
Great. I've been discharged from the hospital. I am now walking out of the pharmacy, which is like, that's the hospital I was in. This is the pharmacy. There was one bill at the end that made me walk across over to the pharmacy to grab drugs. Here they are. They are here. There wasn't like a long wait. I didn't have to drop them off and come back later. And at first I was like, oh man, like it could be expensive. 762 pesos for antibiotics for 3 days and for painkillers. That's like 40 bucks. That's crazy. Also the surgery, the whole surgery, which included, you know, staying in the facility, all the drugs that they gave me, all the people that they had helping, staying in a room for it. I mean, it's like the anesthesiologist, all one bill at the end. That ended up costing a total of 111,000 pesos, or $5,800. Now, mind you, again, Providence's facility cost in Anchorage, Providence, the organization that doesn't pay property tax, their facility cost $28,000 for someone uninsured. This was $5,800 for the whole procedure. And I couldn't have had a more courteous staff, a more professional staff. Everything was really well sterilized. Like, by the way, if you guys want to, I'm gonna link at the end of this video. If you need surgery, why stay in Alaska? Come here, this place is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Ramon, who is my Mexican doctor here, speaks English very, very well. He was so helpful when it came to all my questions. And again, the staff was incredible. So I'll link that at the end of the video. If you guys want a surgery center, I found a really, really good one. These guys were great. But anyway, okay, well, let's go explore a little bit more La Paz. As I've been traveling around La Paz, I keep coming back to the same questions. Why I'm here, what compelled me to leave America to be able to come down here and get surgery, and my thoughts keep coming back to this bill. It was a medical transparency bill that was sponsored by Representative Sponholz that went into effect of January of this year. The problem with the bill is while it had really good intentions and it was supposed to compel providers to give a good faith estimate to consumers like myself, to patients, The teeth that were written into the bill were stripped because the Department of Health and Social Services decided that it would be unfair to compel providers to give those good faith estimates with any sort of teeth behind them. And what I mean by that is they were supposed to be able to give out fines in case those good faith estimates were wrong, and also if they didn't provide them in a timely way. But right now there are no protections. And while the bill was a good start because I was able to use it as a way to compel my provider to give me that information, right now there's no enforcement mechanism to make sure that they are doing so. So it's a law with no penalty, which is hardly a law at all. Those more seem like guidelines. So I reached out to Representative Sponhold's office to see if she'd be willing to sit down with me and Skype with me or whatever and talk with me while I was here in Mexico so I could find out what the intention of the law was and if she thinks it's gone far enough. Because I'm really grateful that it's there, but I wanted to find out if there was more that could be done to fix this issue of transparency. How are you doing? Also, hi.
Hi, I'm all right. We're in special session land here in Alaska still, so.
Nice. I am in recovery session here in La Paz, Mexico. I guess I want to start with thank you so much for passing the bill that you passed, for passing HB 123, and taking the time to talk with me. But I was kind of curious why you came up with HB 23 and why you think it's important.
Well, I think, I mean, you've had an experience now where you understand how difficult it is to get basic information about what healthcare services are going to cost in the state of Alaska. Healthcare consumers can't be a part of making rational healthcare choices if they don't understand all of the issues. You want to understand who is qualified to provide the procedure, what kind of ranges of different procedures are available to you, and you want to understand the cost as well. And right now, patients still have trouble getting that basic information. Healthcare costs as much as it does in the state of Alaska because we haven't been actively managing it. In order to start controlling cost in healthcare, we have to have a really comprehensive understanding of what healthcare costs us. So I think healthcare price transparency, that I pass is sort of a first step. And I've been describing, addressing and really truly reforming healthcare system to reduce costs as a marathon, and that healthcare price transparency is enacted in SB 105 is really just mile one. And, for anybody who has ever run long distances, they know that mile one, you're just barely getting warmed up. You haven't even hit your stride yet. So I think I tend to think of this healthcare price transparency measure as sort of the first step in a series of building blocks. We have to get the public aware of what healthcare costs so that we can start asking questions and start pushing back so that we can have market forces beginning to act. I think the next step in healthcare price transparency is what is in other states is called an all-payer claims database, and this is basically a centralized database where we find out what every single procedure in the state of Alaska, regardless of who paid for it, gets put into the database, so we can start to understand the cost and spend for healthcare.
The interview with Representative Sponholz went on for about 30 minutes, but I think it can be best summed up with this.
In the healthcare system, we don't have a capitalist system anymore in the healthcare system. It's really sort of more a system of cronyism where people are sort of dividing up the spoils, and the people that lose the most are healthcare consumers, who are the vast majority of utilizers of the healthcare system. And it's time for us to take that back and to put the free market back into play in the healthcare system so that Alaskans can know what it is that they're paying and buying before they buy it.
Thanks so much to Representative Sponholz and everyone who made this production possible. As I go back to Anchorage, repaired, I can't help thinking about those who may not be so lucky. The young, single mom who gets into an accident and finds herself in debt for the next 20 years. We can do better. I'm not sure of the solutions, but if this raises the awareness on the issue by just a little, it will have been a success. Thanks for watching.